So John White here with Luke 10, and I'm with my good friend Kent Smith, and I'm really excited that he gets to share with you guys on this. This is part of the Leader 101 course. We are in the first month, which is Cultivating the Habit of Joy, and I think Kent's got some real important things to share about that. But I'd like, Kent, if you would first of all just share for those that may not know you a little bit about yourself. Where are you and what are you doing there, and your relationship with Luke 10?
Sure. Well, it's great to get to be with you again today, John, and just talk a little bit about this important topic. We go way back. John and I have been working in the area of simple and organic and house church now for over a decade, and co-launched Luke 10 maybe about 7 years ago now, I guess, right?
7 or 8, yep.
Yeah. So encouraged with the way God's at work through Luke 10. My focus has been for the last 25 years in training a particular kind of stewards that are very good at nurturing communities that are vibrantly engaged in God's life and work. And I teach in the Graduate School of Theology at Abilene Christian University, where I've been now for 25 years, and train mission teams for North America and around the world. So I'm very excited about the ways that Luke 10 is beginning to, in many ways, reach into pockets of people that we couldn't reach through a graduate school, and to provide leadership training that's accessible to many, many people. So I'm very excited to be on this journey, very excited about Leadership 101 and the ways that God seems to be leading us into broader and more effective impact at this stage in the story.
Well, I love the way the kind of relationship between Luke 10 and what you're doing. So if someone wanted to go on to either college level education, if you have some of the people have children, there's some house church type stuff going on at ACU, Abilene Christian University, and then on to the graduate level, which is really where Kent teaches. So I never thought I'd be friends with a seminary professor. This is really amazing. So Kent was absolutely instrumental 8 years ago with starting Luke 10. I don't think we would have gotten this off the ground without him. And he's the president of the board of directors, and also he and Jordan Bunch and I hang out together like this every week. And so everything that we're doing in Luke 10, I get to run by those guys. So they bring sanity and balance and ask a lot of good questions. So Kent's a real important guy in my life. So Kent and I were talking just in the last weeks about this first topic in Leader 101, which is Cultivating Joy. And he had some really important perspectives, I think, to share about that, which I wanted the rest of you all to hear. So Kent, why don't you share what's on your heart about this?
Sure. Well, in my own life, and I know in the lives of a lot of people with whom I work, one of the big challenges of living in joy and living out of God's joy is that we struggle to keep connecting with the very source of joy, which is God's own life, God's self. And so as I've reflected on that and really observed, even in my own kind of daily living as a disciple of Jesus, I've noticed kind of two big issues that seem to come up and get in the way of me connecting deeply with God. And the first one is that I tend to forget. I think we tend to forget who this God is. We keep forgetting. And the very first attack on people was basically to distract them from the nature of who God really is. As the enemy comes and tests those people in the garden, we need to keep coming back to who God really is. And so I think that's the first thing. And the way that I like to counter that or keep reminding myself and others is that there's a story that we find ourselves in. And I can tell all of history from a human perspective, at least in just a few seconds, by stating some simple things. Number one, in the beginning was delight. And in the end will be deeper delight. And in between is this amazing invitation. Come, share our delight. You know, before the first woman and man were made in the image of God, the God of delight, before that garden of delight was planted for them, there was this amazing God who created all things out of the delight, the creative power, the beauty, the majesty, the infinite wisdom of a community. A father who spoke, a son who was the word, a spirit who hovered over those waters. But even prior to the creative act, God has been a community, a family, a vibrant family of delight in one another, in the sharing of life together. And it was out of that reality that everything was made. And I think if we keep coming back to this story that we find ourselves in, out of a God who is love, who is the source of all joy and delight, it helps us to feel better about coming back to God again today when we remember those realities. Is that making sense?
Totally, man. And I think one of the things that has been really powerful for me is the understanding that when we become a Christian, what it means is to be invited into that Trinitarian community, this community of delight. And that's the very nature of becoming a Christian and living as a Christian. And that's so different from the way that I framed things for a long time. So I love the way that you paint that picture, Kent.
Yeah. Well, I love the way the story ends. Of course, in the last chapter of the book of Revelation, we're reminded that the three are there: the Father on the throne, the Son, the Lamb, and the Spirit, and the bride say, come. The invitation is, in this whole story, is for us to join God in God's delight and to live in that perpetual celebration that is the life of God. We've been invited up. And yeah, it's an amazing story to keep coming back to and remembering.
So you were going to talk about how this impacted your life in a major way. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, so I think that's the first big thing. The first big hurdle is we've got to keep coming back and remembering who God is. I think the second thing is that we forget who we are. And so there are several pieces to that. One is we forget that we are literally the sons and daughters of God. We are made in God's image. We bear the fingerprints of the God of the universe, and each of us in a distinctive way shares that identity of God's life and a wonderful grace, a wonderful gift to the world and to history. And that's vitally important for us to keep discovering and remembering. The problem for me, and I suspect for a lot of the people with whom I work and that I know, is that I know that despite that image of God that's on me, I also know how marred, how flawed, how imperfectly I bear that image, how faithfully I reflect that image. And that's the other side of our identity as people that we have to keep remembering as followers of Jesus. Namely, we have been adopted. We have been born anew. We have been brought into new life through our identity with Jesus. And so, our identification with Jesus as the very Son of God gives us a kind of confidence. The Hebrew writer talks about how we come boldly, we come confidently into the presence of God, not because we're worthy, but because of God's having made us one with God through the life, the death, the burial, the resurrection of Jesus. And that union with Jesus gives us a new kind of confidence and adoption as sons and daughters that gives us every reason to come confidently, even when we've blown it, even when we've messed up. That's the story of the prodigal son, right? The father always has a father's heart for the father's children, regardless of how broken and foolishly we've lived our lives. So we can come boldly back. We can come again today. And I think that's really vitally important for us to remember not only who God is, but who we are in Christ before God.
Yep. It makes me think of John Eldridge. I think it's in Waking the Dead, where he's so articulate about saying this is the very core of the battle that we are in, that the enemy, his prime objective is to assault the glory of God in us. Mm-hmm. It infuriates him, and he will do anything he can to assault that. And I think realizing that we're in a battle and that there are going to be attacks like that is part of the process as well.
I remember a retreat that I was helping conduct in central Mexico a number of years ago, and the team was struggling with some relational issues, and we were talking about intimacy, and we decided we'd take a break and just spend a little time alone with the Lord, just thinking and reflecting on how does intimacy happen. And in the middle of that time, one of the more clear moments of my experience of interaction with the Lord, I heard the sentence or saw the sentence very clearly. Kent, the pathway to intimacy is mutual self-disclosure. And as a teacher, I thought, oh, that is an awesome insight. I love that. I can teach that like crazy. But that wasn't the end of the message. There was a pause, a pregnant pause, and then the question came to me, so, Kent, when are you going to begin to show me more of yourself so that I can show you more of myself? And I think that's the invitation. That's the challenge that the Father gives us, that God offers all of us every single day. Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden. I'll give you rest. Come to me with your brokenness, with your struggle. Be who you are with me. Disclose where you are with me. And in the middle of that, you'll open the door for me to show you more of myself, more of my power, more of my goodness, more of the joy and the peace and the delight that I have promised you. And so, boy, I hope more of us will make a relentless commitment, make an unstoppable commitment, make a settled resolve to make space every day to be with the Father, to be with the Lord, and to let ourselves be known by the Lord so that the Lord can reveal more of the riches that are on offer for us from the very source of joy.
Two thoughts about that, Kent. The first one is this relates so well, I think, to our first rhythm of attention, checking in with Sachet. So really what we're saying is the first person that we need to check in with every day is the Lord. And that's where it starts, in sharing with him honestly. And I think he shares with us. As we learn to listen, he begins to share his emotions with us as well. So that's the starting place. And then with other people is a secondary kind of thing.
Absolutely.
The other thing that occurs to me is that for lots of us, a reason that we are, I'll speak for myself, maybe hesitant to do that is because we grew up in families with fathers and mothers who were less than perfect. And so we learn different strategies of hiding, of not sharing all of what's going on, and of covering things over or making things look better than they were. And so this is a place of healing and of real growth for lots of us, learning how to do this with a Father who is completely safe. We get the concept, the theology of that, but living into that's a different story.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. It takes practice. It takes steady reframing, rewiring of our flawed thinking, of our brains, to settle into that truth about who God is and who we are in light of who God is.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Ken, thank you so much. This is again, the framework is Leader 101, and our objective is the idea that leading things is always challenging. There are people that are frustrating, the enemy's attacks, and all the rest. But the good news is that the joy of the Lord is our strength. And that as we cultivate that joy, the result of that is endurance, resiliency, all of those kinds of things. So in Luke 10, we first of all want to be a community of leaders who are helping each other cultivate that quality of joy, and knowing who God is, being clear about that, and almost growing on a daily basis, disclosing ourselves and being in his presence is the starting place of all that. So thank you for what you shared, and I am delighted to be on the journey with you, my friend.
It's my joy.
All righty. Bye for now.